Enemy bosses can now crit. Is this the end? How's it, everybody? Celtic Link here. We're back for another Dokkan battle video. In today's video, we are talking about a little something that was discovered in the last version update on JP Dokkan and shortly coming to global, and that is this little detail right here, along with a bunch of other string of effects. One thing was noticed that was added in the most recent update on JP Dokkan, and this is the probability for enemies to invoke a critical hit, right? As we all know, the critical hit is a function within the game that allows you to bypass enemy guard, enemy type, and, defense in general, and deal an attack that deals double the damage as it normally would. A very, very powerful skill for us as a player, right? As, if we look at any given boss, like, let's say Super Saiyan God Vegeta on JP Dokkan, for example, right? Any given boss, they all have some type of, defense and damage reduction that can be, a critical hit could easily bypass, or if they're type disadvantage, their guard could bypass with a critical hit. So, it's a very, very useful tool. So now that tool is now being given to bosses, right? Meaning that the boss will be able to do the same to you. The boss will be able to bypass your type advantage, bypass your guard, and bypass your damage reduction. Not to say that those skills won't be useful, they will just be less viable, right? You may be still reducing 50% of your damage with a 50% damage reduction, but you would still have to deal with that, in the case of Gogeta, for example, right? In the case of Gogeta, you're still having to deal with a, over 4 million super that you're reducing the damage for. So that's kind of a lot to deal with, right? So I've been seeing a lot of people that are seeing this, and the immediate response is, this is bad, this is dangerous, right? This is going to cause a level of power creep that we may not necessarily want. And to a degree, I agree, but at the same time, I think there's more to it than that, right? I think it'll offer a bit of a challenge to, maybe build characters that don't rely on guard, damage reduction, etc. Because, for example, I keep coming back to the Gogeta, right? We think Gogeta or Beast Gohan, for example. These are the two hardest fights on JP Dokkan. Crit or no, you're dying to that super if anybody besides the main 9th anniversary LRs take that hit, and maybe Blue Evolution Vegeta. Although he might, he's still going to take a bit because he's type disadvantage, right? So, whether that super is a crit or not, most characters are dying to it. So the crit really doesn't matter there. Where I think the crit would really provide some interesting things is, say, a fight like this new Frieza event. A lot of people were complaining that there was the fight just wasn't too difficult. It was more on the level of the original LGE, which I don't necessarily disagree with, but the full power phase can obviously be a bit tricky if he actually gets off that super and raises his attack and defense, because then you're dealing with a super that's dealing over 1.5 million damage. So think about it this way, right? Let's say they give the enemy a critical hit chance, like, let's just say, like, the lowest possible chance, a rare chance, I think is like a 15% or 10% chance. So let's say they give the enemy a rare chance to crit. So this full power Frieza, it now has a rare chance to not only have his attack raised to 1.5 million, but now deal a critical hit for 3 million on top of that. Really, really big. It would allow some more difficulty to these fights if enemies also have the increased ability to, deal a critical hit. And I really don't think it's necessarily a bad thing, simply because on a fight like this. So on here, it obviously turns a fight that's not as dangerous into slightly more dangerous, right? Now you have some issues with full power Frieza or golden Frieza here, but it doesn't change much in the fact for Beast Gohan or like the Gogeta fight, because as I said earlier, that super was going to kill you anyways, right? You were dying to that damage anyways. So to me, yeah, all it does is just add one less thing. It makes people have to rely on Beast Gohan a little less. It would increase the value of dodge characters like UI Goku or Super Saiyan God, Super Saiyan Gogeta. So there is that. It would increase the value of dodge, but everybody else is dying to that super anyways, guard or no. So to me, I don't really think it matters. What to me all of this spells is they've been trying to do something that I felt like they've been doing since almost Fusion Zamasu, really, and that is they are trying to make super attacks for us as the player extremely deadly, right? They are trying to make it so that when we enter a fight and the enemy super attacks us, it is something we have to worry about for a very long time, even through the not right exactly as Broly dropped, but maybe about 6 months into the 7th anniversary meta, super attacks for most characters almost became a joke, right? Because we started to see a lot of characters get guard or damage reduction. Not every character had it, but most did. Enough to where, like, people were expecting double-digit damage tanking from every unit that would release to deal with supers. So I think what this is the game showing us that that's not going to happen anymore, right? This is now them giving the bosses one more thing in their repertoire to ensure that you don't tank that super. To me, it really feels like they're building bosses where the super attack is deadly. It is meant to be run ending. Now, my only issue is all these events, Gogeta, Beast Gohan, Fusion Zamasu, right? They all have attempt limits. You remove those attempt limits, and then I feel it's not as big of an issue. But as long as there are attempt limits, that's kind of where I draw the line. That creates a problem for me. But, I mean, I understand where they're going. The only way to combat a unit like a Beast Gohan is to add something like the ability to critical hit on bosses. And so we knew it was to come eventually. It could be interesting. I know, I think on some of the private servers they actually had events where bosses could crit, and it wasn't too terrible. So it really just depends on how it's implemented. But I don't honestly think it's that bad of a thing. I think it's just it's one more way to help deal to help push that idea that super attacks are supposed to finish your fight and make you have to try again and, rethink your strategy, etc., etc. So, I mean, it'll be interesting to see when this when it actually comes into play. Now, as far as when this type of thing is going to happen, right? My guess it's in the data for JP, but it's not been activated. There's no boss that can currently activate that right now. Now, Global is about to go into another maintenance, and at this point we should be coming to the version update that JP is currently on, which means we will both be synced in terms of our versions. So we will get this in our data download here soon. What does that tell us? That means one of two things. They could advance this thing here, and we could possibly see a new event that has bosses able to do this during the Golden Week campaign, or they might add the ability to previous bosses by adding a new stage. Like the this stage could have a new stage added to it, like how they added MUI Goku to the original LGE later on. They could add a They could add Angel Golden Frieza or something, or maybe eventually Black Frieza. That might not happen right away, right, to this stage, and now that boss can also critical hit. Or they could just strap it into the data of already existing fights. I don't know if that's possible, but I mean, maybe that's something that will be done there. Not sure if that's entirely possible, but We'll have to see, but it should be coming to global right after this. It'll be in our data, so we could see, like I said, we could see during the worldwide campaign, or as late as we could see it during the Golden Week campaign, or as late as the worldwide campaign, when we are expected to see, the full synchro happen. Hard to say exactly, but we will see it for sure in the data once the maintenance is up. So guys, that is it for the video. If you liked the video, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you have not already. And in the comments down below, let me know, what do you think of this idea of enemies now able to deal critical damage? I'm not entirely against it, as like I said, I feel like they're building towards a scenario where boss fights, supers are supposed to be deadly for you, and you are supposed to kind of figure out ways to deal with them, not necessarily being able to double-digit tank them, as well as also feel that we're probably going to be seeing more bosses with that, and less units with guard and damage reduction as a result. But we'll have to see. But let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Otherwise, guys, as always, thanks for watching, and aloha.